Okay, note to self. Whenever I do another movies, I am definitely going to make sure I go to an earlier showing. Because, don't get me wrong, I know it's Saturday, which does remind me, happy Saturday everybody. I know that it's the weekend, and I know I would take this opportunity to sleep in, but you guys are expecting my videos, and to deny that would be nothing short of, tragic, I suppose. Or, I guess, sort of, not good. But you don't care about that. You care about what I'm going to say today, now, don't you? Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be watching the video anyway. So, yeah. I mean, you can just watch what I did last night. I mean, again, I saw a good movie. I mean, again, a little by the numbers, but overall, good movie. I liked it a lot. But, I actually talk about, the NFL a lot. I talk about football a lot. I mean, I love football. I played football in high school. So, of course, it has a special place in my heart, and I do love talking about it. But one aspect of football that I really never do talk about is college football. And don't misunderstand me, I really do like college football a lot. I do. I like Penn State, I like Ohio State, I like Michigan, I live near Syracuse. I live near Syracuse. I like Florida. I like the Gators. I like the Longhorns. That's really the ultimate problem with college football. It's not that I don't like it. Not at all. It's just there are so many teams that, for the life of me, I cannot possibly keep track of them all. And don't even get me started on how they possibly do those top 25 ranks in the beginning of the year. Because that's just completely over my head. So, I say this because while I do like watching college football, well, I should get into why I like college football. I really like college football because it gives an opportunity for any athletes who really want to go to that big stage, the NFL. It gives those athletes an opportunity to see how they would fare when they're far away from home, because that's actually what it is like when you're an NFL player, when you think about it. I mean, depending on where you're drafted to or who you try out for, you're going to be far away from where you live, probably. And in a way, that's what college is sort of meant to do. Prepare you for the real world. Whether you decide to become a professional athlete or do whatever job it is you want to do when you're done. And that's really the ultimate good thing about college in general. But in the end, I really like the whole concept of, big Division I schools supporting their team, all the pomp and circumstance that goes with it, all the bands and stuff playing around, the music playing. Excuse me, again, I was out late last night, ladies and gentlemen. I dig that. I love every single bit of that. But I say this because I mentioned the other day, when I talked about the 16 of the left, that the person with the initials SS was our head prefect, our generalissimo, the de facto leader. In fact, I once had, call this delusions of grandeur for me, but I once thought that if I ever got to athletic greatness, say I did something akin to a marathon or even something like an Ironman, I would have liked to have called myself Optimus Prime. I would not end up doing that though, because that guy who was our head prefect when I was at Trinity-Pawling, that guy was our Optimus Prime. And I'm pretty sure any of my brothers watching this video, at least up to this point, would agree with that. And it ended up being true because he ended up getting accepted and played football for Stanford for 5 years. One of them was a redshirt year. And he got drafted to the San Francisco 49ers, where he played on their practice squad. He played on the practice squad for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. And now he is an advocate for getting football down in Mexico. Yes, Mexico is actually the correct pronunciation of that country. Although, personally, if you want to call it Mexico, I'm not going to stop you. I just know what the correct pronunciation is. Funny enough, I learned that watching Gabriel Iglesias, of all people. But it does beg the question, were there any other Trinity-Pawling students, or brothers, if you will, who also got to play college football at the Division I level? Well, the answer to that is yes. In fact, and I'm sure some of you guys have probably figured this out by now, today we're doing another TP Tales. So, yes, when I was at Trinity-Pawling, I took environmental studies class. And one such individual, who was a junior when I was there, decided to repeat his junior year in order to play football at Division I. And not only would he eventually become a head prefect himself, but he got to play football for Army. Yeah, again, I never named names, so to give you a hint as to what his name was, he actually has the same name as a very popular brand of cognac. Think Tupac, if you will. Anyway, so he actually got to play football for, Army. And not only that, but remember I mentioned the man who was one of the 16 on the left who got to play for Stanford? In 2013, well, I should back up. I'll never forget this morning, because it was the first time I thought I had ran 20 miles in one setting, but then I clocked it and it was really 17.6, which is still a pretty long distance to run in its own right, but whatever. That morning, Stanford and Army played against each other. Yes, head prefect versus head prefect. Doesn't get any more exciting than that. A bunch of my brothers went down to see that game. One of the old football coaches went down to see that game. This is a big day for any Trinity-Pawling alumni who was even really interested in football, which I totally was, so right on. And both of them played linebacker, so they couldn't, at least another one who went to Stanford played linebacker, but yeah, I think they were both linebackers. But the point is, they couldn't literally play against each other, if you will. Because they're both on defense, and you can't have two defenses out in the field at the same time. That'd be weird. My point is, they got to play against each other. It was exciting. From what I remember, it was a really good game. I'm pretty sure Stanford won, but this was the year that Stanford was, along with 5 other teams, were undefeated for the longest time. I'm pretty sure Stanford got to 8 wins in a row before they finally lost to USC. Funny story about that. And keep in mind, you brothers who are watching, you among my brothers who remember this time will know who to blame momentarily. The night that Stanford played against USC that evening, this was, again, fall of 2013. I actually went, this is back when I lived with my folks. My father and I were actually watching the game against Stanford and USC, and my father actually predicted USC would win. Yes, you guys, my brothers who are watching this, you can blame my father. He jinxed them. He jinxed our head prefect, if you will. But, literally, after that, Like, every week, one team that was undefeated would lose. Like, first it was Stanford, then it was Baylor. It gets to, like, the third week or whatever. I'm like, okay, which undefeated team do you think is gonna lose to this time? Because my father just had the uncanny ability to pick out who was, like, which team was better than anyone else, all that stuff. And not just, like, teams, like, just individual athletes in general. And in a way, that's sort of how he was able to gauge how good my brother and I would be if we, actually got off our lazy bums and, worked hard. And we did. Again, I went from being told that there are people in the stands who could do better than I would to being one of the top athletes in my graduating class. I mean, I went from not being able to like running at all to being one of the very few people of my graduating class who could successfully run a sub 6-minute mile. And keep in mind, this is back when I was at Horseheads, playing as a lineman for football. Seriously, a lineman able to run a sub 6-minute mile? That's gotta be more rare than, I don't know, finding a holographic Charizard Pokemon card at this day and age. Probably. I don't know. But, yeah. Throughout my years of, again, being an athlete for Horseheads and Trinity-Pawling, and Gettysburg too, I've met some very extraordinary people. And if you think it's just limited to the 16 of the left, not even close. In fact, to be perfectly honest, it was extremely hard to narrow it down just to 16. Well, you're probably thinking, well, could you have more? Well, yeah, I could, but I only have so much room on my arm. Not to mention, I'm left-handed. It's easy to write the initials of the 16 of the right because I can simply write on my right hand. It's kind of hard for me to write using my right hand on my left arm. It's very difficult to do. I mean, I can make it legible, of course, but I have to be very meticulous as to how I use my penmanship, I suppose. But that's neither here nor there. So, yeah. That's my story about how literally two head prefects went up against each other. And it was awesome. I don't know what the head prefect who ended up going to Army is doing right now. But suffice to say, and I've always believed that Trinity-Pawling really was more of a Knights of the Round Table type thing, where, one really isn't better than the other. But the thing about the prefects, not just the head prefect, but the other prefects in general, you just knew that they were the prefects, not just because, they were simply voted by their peers, but they had the ability to instill confidence. And I like to believe I was able to do that at some point. I mean, again, I'm not perfect, I'm only human, just like pretty much everyone else who's watching these videos. But in the end, I'm really glad that I met those people, and again, it's people like that that remind me why there really is a lot of good in the world, and why I'm able to get up in the morning, and therefore make these videos, even though it's almost 11 o'clock in the morning right now. I should probably get this video done before I start procrastinating even further. So, like, favorite, share, and hit that subscribe button. I could really use the support on YouTube. Follow me on the social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the usual suspects. I'm very humbled I made this video for all of you guys to watch and enjoy for today. I'm hopefully all have a wonderful Saturday. And remember, if any of you guys are on a talk or chat, I'm always going to be here to lend an ear, and I'll always have your back. Take care.